What's happening, everybody? Welcome back. Got a cool video today. It involves some riding and it should answer some questions. I get a lot of questions about number one, how do you get into racing? Two, what do you do to train for racing? Three, what's your setup? Things like that, all over the place. Today we're going to be riding the Desert Rig because it happens to be day 3 of Test and Tune. We're about 5 days out from Vegas to Reno. I'm actually going to be heading up there Wednesday to get ready because Tech and Contingency is Thursday. And I've got to take this thing out, and we're doing a little bit of testing fuel mileage and also a little bit of shakedown on this thing. So I can take you guys out there with me today. I've got about 10 to 15 miles left. I've put on 50 miles the last 2 days, so today should be a pretty quick riding video, but I get to show you guys all the different terrain that I ride through, the types of riding I'm trying to do to train for these desert races. It's also about 100 degrees right now. Today's a little bit cooler, but Friday was 95 degrees Fahrenheit. That was ambient temp when I went out. Yesterday was about 104 when I went out. So I'm also checking on the temperatures on the machine. Today, right now, it's about 100 degrees. So we'll see what the temperatures are on now. But right now it seems to be holding down. So without any more further talk, let's get out there and I'll show you guys what I do. All right, everybody. Welcome out to one of my training areas out here. Right now, what you guys see down here, it says 156 degrees. That's actually my coolant temp, but right now I think it's about 95 degrees Fahrenheit outside. So it's a good time to get out, acclimate myself a little bit. The varying temperatures are going to be all over for the desert race, so get my body warmed up just like I would the machine. What I'm riding is this 05 TRX 450R. You guys might remember it. It's called Nomad. This is the one I built for Vegas to Reno last year. Jason and myself, Jason with all the parts, came together. I built it. He supplied a bunch of the parts. We got some sponsors on board and got this thing ready for Vegas to Reno. So it's just recently gone through a rebuild. It's a Department of Power engine, massaged by Jeff at Oregon Coast Power Sports, some refresh suspension done by No Lean and refreshed by Joe Gaka, and then I've done a bunch of like the new bearings and swing arm stuff, and nice and tight machine again. What you guys are seeing here is the Trail Tech that I put on it. It's been so helpful for engine temps, speed, and mileage. You can see we're at about 142.5. I've got to put 10 to 15 miles on today to see what kind of fuel mileage we're getting. So that's one of the things that I test and tune. I put a full tank of fuel in here and I go until it's empty. Luckily, I can ride around close enough to the house that if I do run out, I can just call the wifey and say, hey, can I please have a tank of fuel? She can bring a jug out, or I can just push it down the street. But where I'm at right now is kind of where I warm up. I get the machine going, I get myself going. Oh, you can hear it, it's already whooped out. It's a really windy day, but that keeps the heat off of me a little bit. We got all kinds of terrain around here. Yuma's kind of a hidden gem for this desert stuff. I mean, a lot of people know about it, but I don't think they realize just how good it is. So here in this area, it's a lot of pure sand, and there's a long whoop section that I hit right here. Get me warmed up, get the machine warmed up, get that feeling. And it's like a power robber, this really soft beach sand stuff. I'll show you here. That's the kind of sand that's out here. And then of course you see we have mountains out there way off in the distance. I'll ride out to those. Then I've got rocks. I've got washes that are loamy, kind of pea gravel. There's some big boulders, there's some hill climbs, so there's all kinds of terrain. It's very good for training in. So that's the kind of riding I do to train myself. That's one of the questions I get quite a bit is, how do you train, or where do you train? It's just out here. There really are no tracks that allow quads on them. There's a couple, but they're far and few between. So we ride the desert. So here's the warm up. We're at about 180 degrees on coolant temp. Oh man. This thing is so fast. It is built for speed. It's not a track machine, that is for sure. It likes to hold straight lines and go very fast. So that's like a very good warm-up section. Getting to about third or fourth gear. On this machine, that's 50 to 60 miles an hour. On the Yamaha or my other Honda, that's about 45 miles an hour. So you can just see the difference. This is very tall geared and very tall tires. So a lot of speed on the machine. Out here riding this thing, I'm trying to do race pace to get a real feel for how the suspension's working, what's tight, what might come loose. I'm also trying to replicate race conditions so we can see what our fuel consumption is going to be. We want to make sure we don't run out of fuel. I think one stretch this year is 60 miles, so we want to make sure we have plenty of fuel to get through that. So I'm testing that. What I'm also testing is to see how well this thing holds a straight line, what the handling feels like, if it wanders at all or if it feels nice and tight. We've got a steering stabilizer, make sure that's not too tight or way too loose. Trying to make sure this thing still handles like a Honda, but it's built specifically for desert, so it has to do those certain things. I'm also checking for the gearing. If it's laboring too much in a higher gear, like for instance, we run fourth gear to fifth gear for a lot of that race. We're topping out at about 80 miles an hour in certain sections where it's wide open. Man, I hope this wind isn't too much for you guys today. It's windy. So I want to make sure that this Honda engine that we had built for desert racing specifically, since I geared it so tall, can handle those taller gears out there, because if you go too tall for the engine, it won't have the power to spin the wheels and tires up in those top two gears. In fact, you'll switch up into fifth thinking you're going to gain ground and you actually lose power and you slow down. That's happened a couple times. That's part of the learning experience when you're out here doing the testing. I haven't done a whole lot of testing in the past, and I ended up screwing up gearing and our engine combination and stuff like that. So I think we got it dialed this time. That's also a reason why people choose these 05 Hondas. Transmissions are beefy. I had this one treated by Hikemian Race Engines. They're all the way out in New Hampshire, and he did cryogenics on this transmission, so it should be plenty strong enough. They're already a strong transmission, but it's better now. Where we're headed now is out to the ridge line. Oh man. So here I'm just trying to be courteous because there are people. I don't want to blow a bunch of dust in there. This engine picks up so much better. Thank you, Jeff. If there's somebody that knows Hondas, Oregon Coast is definitely one of them. Here you guys can see we're in kind of a wash where there's a mix of rock and pea gravel, so it's real loamy and deep. This is where it's real easy to have a machine wander on you. Another thing about desert racing is everything is unknown. So you go and hit a certain course, it may be similar from year to year, but there's no pre-running, there's no practice laps. So a lot of blind hills and things like that. I know what's on the other side of that one, but a lot of blind hills and sections where you really gotta watch what you're doing. That's the desert racing scene. High speeds, unknown course, surviving. Now we're getting into the rocky ridge line that I like to ride. It's very good training for arm pump, I'll tell you that. So another thing I'm watching here, my temperatures, that's a big one. We're running 13-to-1 and race fuel. Should stay pretty cool, but then I can adjust my jetting depending on how this thing is running. So that's another reason why I come out here and do this. It's good to have some time to get out here and test and tune so you can really dial in your machine and yourself. Right now we're holding about 195 degrees, cruising around. When I'm at full race pace, I notice it climbs up above 200 to 220. That's the range, but at full tilt in 5th gear, you can imagine it starts getting pretty hot. So 220, 5th gear pin, not bad in 100-degree ambient temps. This is a little bit uphill, so it's kind of nice to see how the machine, woohoo, little off-road, reacts climbing, because Vegas Reno actually climbs from, I want to say, about 2,000 feet of elevation all the way up to about 6,500 feet. So jetting is important and making sure your gearing is good. But here, I'm very lucky to have such terrain to go and practice on. It's great. It really does replicate race conditions really well. That's really it. That's all you need to train, really, is just try to replicate conditions, find where you can speed up, where you need to be more cautious, and it's learning and reading the terrain. Also, preserving the machine, that is another one. Because you can go all out, but you might wreck or break something. Little hill climb. Oh yeah, crawls right up in second. But you might break something and end your day. It happens a lot. So, being able to preserve the machine is another massive factor. Like I said, survival. I should probably start heading back because we have done, no, we've done 5 miles. I think we're still good. Either way, I should probably get back over to the other area. I'll show you guys that whooped out road. And trying to hold some speed. Let me address a couple other questions I get. How do you get into racing? Get a machine, make sure you have a kill switch, whatever required safety equipment that race promotion wants, like AZOP, Works, ATVMX, they all require roughly the same thing.
Out here in the desert, decibel level is not really an issue. Same thing with Works. There really is no decibel level. I think it's in the rules, but the amateur class is not a big deal. Enter a beginner class. Don't be embarrassed. I started out in C class, in 30 plus C, and I did okay. It was really just to get my feet wet, understand the rules, understand how the race goes. You learn a lot, like what kind of pace I should hold, what the terrain's going to be like, what the bike feels like. So whatever you're riding, trying to get a feel for whatever that's going to be like. And then you start to pick up speed and you understand some things. Your body starts to pick up some muscle memory, and that's really how I got into racing myself. I've always liked quads and ridden them, but I had never raced anything like Works until 2020. Then I was like, you know, screw it. I'm gonna go take a stab at it. And I did. And it was awesome. You pick up a lot quick. Also, a lot of other people who race there, especially on the ATVs, they are more than willing to share tips and best practices and experiences they've had, including the pros. A lot of them will talk to you and tell you, oh yeah, this is exactly what I learned. So it's awesome. Just get a machine, get the safety equipment, get started. Entry fees are like 65 bucks. So you can spend 65 bucks on one class in a weekend. I understand fuel and stuff like that, but if you run stock compression engine, pump gas, go and fill up a 5-gallon jug, you're usually good for a whole weekend, especially in Works. Now another question. I thought you were all Honda. I've been getting that more often lately since I picked up the YFC. Understandably so. I've built and raced, I want to say 6 Hondas now. Started with War Rig, my red machine. Absolutely love that machine, but it got beat down to the point where I need to do a full rebuild. So it's coming back, don't worry. I'm slowly gathering parts, but I built Randy Savage. I built, we're calling the other one Avatar, the last arm bender, since the significant other ran into a tree with it. I've built this desert rig. I built Wanderer, which is actually a combination of 2 rigs I had. I've got the amputee machine, which is on the stand, but I finally got most of the parts in. And then I have a TRX 250R I'm still in the process of building. So, I'm not abandoning Hondas, everybody. Relax. I am expanding my horizons, you might say. But I do love riding the Yamahas. 2 different experiences. Riding a Honda versus riding Yamaha. I get it, there's some people who are diehard one way or the other. I like to try everything, so that's what I'm doing. No hard feelings. It'd be cool if Honda had the same loyalty, you know? If Honda went ahead and made another one, I'm sure I would be one of the first ones in line to get it. One of the last questions before I hit that long road is, I just put on 10 more miles. Woo! We eclipsed the 60-mile mark on 1 tank of fuel. Good. All right, one of the other questions, back to that. What's your setup? I get that quite a bit, actually, because people are curious, what are you running? Well, again, I like to try a little bit of everything. However, what I've learned over the past 3 years or 4 years now is setups are very different. ATVs come in a lot of different flavors, you might say. This one, for instance, desert. It is strictly desert because that requires such a specialized machine. Tall gearing, a lot of torque. Try to make the engine reliable more than just straight crazy horsepower. Tall tires. The suspension is so specialized for desert. It's a lot of wide open valving and softer because you're holding high speeds, but you still want good rebound to stay in contact with the ground. It's definitely a taller machine, wants to hold a straight line more, so your alignment and your camber are a little different. It's very specialized versus a Works machine is kind of an off-roader with some shorter tires. You're kind of in between ATV MX and desert with that. So your valving is stiffer, you're a little bit lower to the ground, better handling. Still have plenty of armor because it's off-road out here, and you'll beat up a machine pretty good and works. But you can up the horsepower because it's got to survive 50 minutes versus 500 miles. Like, this engine's going to make it 500 miles, and we'll probably use it again for Laughlin. Then you got your MX machines, low, fast, excellent handling, very stiff. So the setups vary between machines. I'd have to tell you guys about all the different ones that I've messed with, like Randy Savage versus this versus the Yamaha, you know, so they're all very different. Now, here we are. Here's the road. It is about 5 miles one way. I'm not going to go the whole way, but we are going to get some top speed in the sand over whoops. Here we go. You can hear the chatter. Fifth gear. Getting a feel for how the suspension's going to react. If it's too rough, big hits. Woo! Woo! 65. This is the race pace. We'll see what kind of fuel we use like this. The riding is very different. I gotta stay over the bars, let my legs be some suspension. But right now, these shocks are doing awesome. I gotta focus and breathe. Woo! Oh man. Oh. Yeah, we just put on another mile or two there. About 65 miles an hour. We are at 221 degrees. That is what I was looking for. Whew, that'll get your heart rate going. About 95 degrees out. Full tilt. Fan on. Stock radiator. Maxing at 221. Just held wide open in the sand. That's pretty good. Definitely cooler than the temps we ran last year. We eclipsed 250 degrees. So something was wrong there. I had to fix that after Vegas Reno last year. And we're already cooling down. As soon as we slowed down, it's starting to drop to 200. We're at 211 now. Good. That's what we want. I could fatten up the main jet, but really, since we're going to be climbing an altitude, I don't want to do that because you want a slightly leaner mixture when you get up in altitude. Otherwise, you really start to bog. Also, another reason why I run that Blood Lukes 1550 Scorpion Blood. That stuff just survives. No, it doesn't add horsepower or anything, but it doesn't break down and it survives the heat. That's why we use that stuff. It will make a whole race, 500 miles. I'll dump it and it's still red. Still going. We've already eclipsed 64 miles on this tank of fuel, which means
I can get 70 miles to the gallon on this hog.
we're getting very good fuel mileage. We should be able to stretch those pits and be just fine. We were a little worried if we were going to be able to make it on some of those long ones, but it looks like we're going to be just fine. Another thing you guys might not know, some of you who haven't used them yet, but Tire Blocks or Tire Spines is who we're running this year. When you first put them in, they're pretty stiff. So when you're out here running wide open like that and getting some miles on the machine, you're also breaking in your spines or your blocks and making sure they soften up just a little bit, because it is rough when you first get out on them. They're pretty stiff. just cooking. Oh, this thing is great. Such a good machine. And yes, it jumps pretty good too. And when you jump it, oh, that was nice. There was no rebound left in that. That was good. Didn't bounce back into me. Soaked it up. As this thing wants to fly a little nose high because there's so much armor in the rear. That'll do it for this ride. Take this thing back into the garage.
So there you guys have it. There's how I train and ride, and some of the questions you guys may have had. No, Hondas aren't going anywhere. As you can see, I have plenty of them. This won't be in the garage a whole lot longer. After the race, it's going with Jason, but I like to mix it up a bit. So there's no secret sauce to racing, all right? Just an average guy. I'm just a normal dude who had the desire to go racing and the ability to learn some stuff along the way. That's it. That's all it takes. All right, I'm not doing anything special. Most of the pros just put in the work, all right? There's nothing too crazy. There is obviously some talent out there, but whatever. If you want to race, just go do it. Pick a machine, make sure you got the stuff you need, go out there, sign up, and have a blast. That's the main thing, as long as you're having fun, all right? As for the setups, you can see vastly different. The Yamaha is different than the Honda, that's different than that Honda, that's different than that Honda. And then we got the amputee machine in the background. Sorry, excuse my English. Anyway, what you guys see, that's just a small glimpse. All kinds of good riding out here. If you want to visit Yuma, I am more than willing to ride. Right now, it's just really hot. So hopefully you guys got something out of that. And I will see you guys out on the race course, or hopefully out here in the middle of nowhere. Have a good one.